Hari Om Tat Sat. Welcome to Jyotirmaya Yoga. We focus on spirituality, a journey to self realization. Please subscribe for the mystical meanings of the scriptures and enjoying daily satsang with us. We are currently exploring the book The Art of Positive Feeling, authored by Swami Jyotirmayananda Maharaj, my Guruji, and narrated by myself, Swami Nikhilananda. Today we will be picking up a topic of greed. Greed is called lobha, lobh in Hindi and Sanskrit. In Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Kama, Krodha and Lobha, Kama, desires, Krodha, anger, and Lobha, greed, are referred to as the triple gates to hell. In the previous chapters, we have started to close the first two gates. Now, the third gate, Lobha or greed, is awaiting our attention. It is, if it's not closed, there is no security for the human personality. Due to ignorance, which is avidya, and inadequate philosophical insights, the minds of most people abound with innumerable desires. The constant pressure exerted by these desires weakens the will and causes that all devouring, gluttonous demon of greed to thrive in human personality. Greed and craving are, figuratively speaking, an insult to all that is divine. One suffers from the disease of lobha, and it defiles divinity and drives divine grace away from the heart. This is well illustrated in the following story about a misguided devotee. The story is the Suti Buddha. In Tibet, there is a temple with 1,000 Buddhas, and a devotee selected one of the many Buddhas for his daily worship. Every day he would bring some costly incense and a ghee fed lamp and placed it before his chosen Buddha. However, he observed that the fragrance of his incense would drift towards the other Buddhas, and this upset him. What he bought was very costly, he thought, and he felt it should be all for his own Buddha and not for anyone else. As he pondered the situation with great frustration, he came up with an idea to prevent the fragrance from going to the other Buddhas. He was a bit of a carpenter, so he brought some wooden boards and created a wall all around his Buddha. Now he started burning his candle and incense and was very pleased to see that every bit of the fragrance and light that he offered was going right to his own Buddha. However, within a week, much to his dismay, his Buddha became black due to all the smoke that was confined within the walls of his shrine. If you are the kind of person who wants all the happiness in life for yourself and none for others, you are like that man striving not only to let any fragrance go to any other Buddhas. So, walling yourself in with me and mine constricts your soul and limits your happiness. The Buddha or the spirit within you becomes sooty and selfish. When you turn within yourself, you find no happiness, just sorrow. On the other hand, if you adopt a process of activity which opens your heart and frees the soul instead of constraining or constricting it, you will find that when you turn within, the Buddha within your heart shines bright and your spirit is joyous and happy. Craving never ages. Sage Bharitra Hari says, Trishna na jirna vayameva jirna, which means craving does not age, it does not decay, but we ourselves continue to age and decay. In fact, as a human being ages, his cravings seem to become more and more youthful. This understanding is well illustrated by the following story about an aging king. Once in ancient times there lived a king, Yayati, who, like others of his day, had lived a long time. One day, Yayati noticed old age coming, and although he had enjoyed the sensuous pleasures of life intensely during his life, he suddenly became worried that now he would be devoid of pleasures. He saw a dark future brooding over him, and he was overcome by despair. However, it so happened that a sage had given him a boon because of his good karma performed years before. That special boon gave him the power to exchange ages with any younger person willing to do so. Remembering that boon, King Yayati asked his younger children if any one of them would take his age in exchange for their youth. One of his children, who possessed great dispassion towards the pleasures of life, even at a tender age, replied, "O father, I will be glad to exchange my youth for your age." And so the exchange was made, and Yayati became young again, and again he lived a life of intense pleasure. But time passed on as it must, and King Yayati again found his body aging. However, his cravings for pleasure were still as strong as ever. Thus, he realized the impossibility of ever satisfying one's worldly desires by merely having more and more experiences. Finally, filled with vairagya or dispassion, he composed the following poem. Craving is like fire, and enjoyments of the senses are like oblations of ghee, which is clarified butter, poured into the fire, making it blaze higher and higher. Who could ever quench fire by feeding its flame? The urge for pleasure cannot be fulfilled by all the pleasures of the world. As the story aptly conveys, one who pursues a quantitative concept of pleasure will never be satisfied. He simply continues to hanker for more and more, yet is never fulfilled. Greed is described as a wolf, yet it is even hungrier than a wolf. Even a wolf has a limited stomach, but greed has no limitation. Let's review the interrelationship of desire, anger, greed, and delusion. In chapter 2 of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, verses 62 and 63, Lord Krishna suggests the powerful interrelationship of kama, krodha, lobha, and moha. Kama, desire; krodha, anger; lobha, greed; and moha, delusion. By constantly dwelling upon objects, one develops attachment to them. From attachment, there arises desire. From desire, there is born anger. From anger, there arises delusion. And from delusion, loss of memory. From loss of memory, one loses the function of pure reason, and from loss of reason, one heads towards destruction. So, Lord Krishna has given a very logical flow of how one step leads to another through these vices. As these verses suggest, a degrading chain of events, which is all too common in human life, commences with a simple thought about an object. In Vedantic terms, objects refer to persons and other living creatures, as well as inanimate objects also, that promise some form of happiness. At first, you merely take a fleeting fancy to the object. Then, day after day, you reinforce the fancy by thinking about the object again and again. This is what Lord Krishna is saying in the shloka. Dhyayato vishayan punsaha. Soon your mind develops a psychological leaning of inner attachment. Now we become dependent, called sangha towards that object. When there is sangha, your reasoning begins to be affected and you feel that you cannot live without that object. Thus, the desire Kama, to possess the object, becomes established within our mind. From that desire, anger is born. Anger is this particular context has a special interpretation. It Anger meaning agitation in the mind in this case. When there is desire, two things may happen. You may have fulfillment of the desire or frustration of the desire. In both cases, there is agitation. When there is fulfillment of a desire, agitation first takes the form of elation. A person becomes elated because anything that is unreal, such as the deluded understanding that objects are the source of happiness, cannot settle in your mind in a natural way. It always creates a reaction. That is why, when people become suddenly prosperous or successful, they often don't know how to handle it. Immediately, they must have a drinking party with feverish antics to handle the elation. In broad terms, that elated agitation is also a form of krodha. Further, if a desire is fulfilled, it does not die away. Rather, it usually leads to greed or lobha. Why should a person become greedy if his desire is fulfilled? Shouldn't he be happy that he desired something and now he's attained it? Unfortunately, whenever a desire is fulfilled, the mind begins to use simple mathematics. If I received an ounce of happiness from this object today, I will have more and more happiness from it the longer I cling to it. If this one object has yielded 1 ounce of happiness, 100 objects will then yield 100 ounces. If I have succeeded in acquiring one type of pleasure, why shouldn't I succeed in acquiring other pleasures also? The agitated mind fails to realize that happiness is not quantitative. You cannot gather an ounce of happiness here and an ounce there and thus accumulate a storehouse of happiness. Happiness, in fact, is qualitative. So, we will continue this satsang tomorrow and enjoy this journey every day. So, please join and subscribe if you have not done so, and share it with your friends so you can also bring them on this beautiful journey. And this is the essence. Spirituality is the essence of our life, the true joy. And a few minutes a day makes our day go by beautifully, and we also grow within. Hari Om Tat Sat.